Hello, and welcome to my kitchen. I'm Martha Timke, and today we are going to make sorbet. Well, in order to make our sorbet, we're going to do a little bit of prep first. So, first thing I did was to make some simple syrup. Simple syrup is equal parts water and sugar by weight, and then brought to a boil, just to a boil. We don't want to cook the sugar syrup. We want a nice simple syrup. Bring that to a boil and then let it cool, at least to room temperature. Okay, so then we have some simple syrup. I've also thawed and pureed some raspberries back here. Never, ever, ever try to puree frozen anything. So always make sure that if you're using frozen fruit, that you thaw it out and then you puree it, and then we're going to put it through a sieve and end up with a nice coulis. Second, I have a vessel, something tall and skinny that my saccharometer will float in. Of course, I need my saccharometer. You'll see here's a close-up of the saccharometer. On one side we have one set of numbers, and this is Brix. And on this side we have another set of numbers, and this is Baume. So we want our sorbet to be 17 Baume, and every time we measure this, we're going to look to see where it is on the Baume scale. This is going to float in the liquid, so I need something that's tall enough that it will float in the liquid, and skinny enough that I don't end up using a whole bunch of mix, because I don't want to make 3 gallons of this. I just want to make about a quart of it to go into my handy dandy little ice cream maker over here. Okay, so I want this to float in my liquid, and if I bring this up close, you'll see what I mean. So if it's floating up here, let's say, and my liquid is right here, let's assume it's at the top of my glass, although it's probably going to be a little bit lower. I don't want it to spill all over the place, but let's say it's there. Then the top of the liquid comes right there to about 17 Baume, and that's what I'm looking for. If there isn't enough sugar in this, then it's not going to be as dense, and my saccharometer is going to sink lower. If there's more sugar in it than 17 Baume, then it will rise up like this, and I'll have a higher reading on my Baume scale. So the Baume scale measures sugar density. That's the important part here. Baume measures sugar density, the density of the sugar in a liquid. If I had something thicker, like a jam or something like that, then I would use a tool called the refractometer. And the refractometer refracts light to go in and passes through the liquid or the solution, and then we'll give another scale, and that's called the Brix scale. So to get a baseline reading, I'm going to pour my simple syrup into my glass and fill it as tall or as high as I need it to be in order to get a good reading on my saccharometer. And then I'm going to put my saccharometer in here. Now this is a heavy simple syrup, which means it's equal parts sugar and water by weight. If it were a lighter syrup, then it would be less sugar to water. So maybe 1 time water to sugar, or 1 time sugar to water. But this is a heavy syrup, so it's equal parts. So I would expect this to be about 28 or 30 Baume. So let's see what it is. A little bit less. I am at about, let me let it go, 28 Baume. So I don't know, let's see if we can get you to see that. So now let's get a baseline for our raspberry puree. Now I started out with about 4 cups or a quart of frozen raspberries. I let them thaw, and then I pureed them and then strained them into a bowl with a strainer. I ended up with about 2 cups, so you always want to think extra if you're going from frozen fruit and you're going to be straining it. So always keep in mind that you're going to lose about half of it with pulp and seeds and things like that. So overestimate. So let's get a baseline for the raspberry puree. So I'm just going to drop this in here and let it just naturally sink down. And I think You may be able to see in the video that it is already lower than the simple syrup was. The simple syrup was sticking up like this, and we could see some numbers. I can't even see the top number on this one. Now, if you recall, I said that a perfect baume is 17 degrees baume for sorbet, for a perfect sorbet. So my simple syrup was down here at 28 baume. My raspberry puree was all the way up here, lower than 15. The lowest mine goes is about 10, so it was lower than that. It was about 10 baume. I needed to come somewhere in the middle, between there. I needed to be 17 baume. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my simple syrup and I'm going to pour some into my raspberry puree. Now right away I know that I can put in a good amount of syrup because I need to take this from 10 to 17. And my simple syrup is 28 and I want to bring that down to 17. So I put in some simple syrup. I'm going to pour it back into my glass after I've mixed it up really well, as tall as I need it to be. And now I'm going to put my saccharometer back in there, wipe it off, see if I can get a good reading. All right, so sometimes when you have pulpy things, you need to jiggle it a little bit if you have pineapple or banana or something like that. So this is still it's still lower than 15 baume. So I'm going to go ahead, pour this back into my measuring cup here. Add some more simple syrup because I know it's not down to 17 yet, or up to 17. The scale on the side of the saccharometer is opposite. The lower numbers are at the top. The higher numbers are at the bottom. So I'm going up in numbers, but down on the saccharometer. So a little bit more simple syrup. This takes a little bit of back and forth. I'd rather go little by little than put too much simple syrup in here and then end up having it at too high a sugar concentration. Let me drop that in there. Still need more simple syrup. Everything needs to be cool, or at least at room temperature, in order to get an accurate reading. So I'm going to put more simple syrup in there. Give it a nice stir. Back and forth. I'm getting higher. So it's the first time I'm seeing a number here. So I'm up to 15 baume. So I am up to 15 baume, so I still need a couple more degrees. So I'm going to just pour it right back in there. Another little bit of simple syrup. This is where you want to be careful when you're getting closer and closer to the number that you want. If you're at 16 or if you're at 18, that's fine too. Anywhere between 16 and 18 degrees baume is going to give you a perfect sorbet. And when I say perfect sorbet, I mean texture-wise, mouthfeel-wise, taste-wise. I'm going to drop this in, and let's see. I am 2 lines down from 15, which means I am at 17 degrees baume. Woohoo! Well, now it's time to put this bad boy into the ice cream machine so that we can actually have some sorbet. So this is my ice cream machine. There's all different types. This is just a home kind, and it comes with a paddle, which goes in like this, and a bowl like this. And this is filled with coolant, and it stays really, really cold. You put it in your freezer. If you have a chest freezer, that's the best place to put it. If you have a freezer that's underneath the refrigerator, that's the second best. The worst place or the worst freezer is if you have one of those freezers that's on top, because they just don't get as cold. But you need this to be in your freezer for at least 24 hours in order for it to be cold enough. I have 2 bowls, as you see, so that I always have a bowl in my freezer and it's always ready to go. Because when I want sorbet, I don't want to have to wait for it. It usually can be last minute. So I like to have one ready to go. Also, I like to have 2 if I have the space in the freezer, so that if one loses its chilling power, then I have another one to go into. So if 20 minutes go by and it's really hot or something and my sorbet or ice cream is not freezing, then I have a second one to go into and I don't lose it all. Normally, I would also prefer to let this mature. So maturing is when you take your mix and you leave it in the refrigerator overnight. This is especially important for ice cream because what's going to happen is the starches are going to absorb some liquid if there are starches in there. The sugar and the flavors are going to marry with each other and marinate in there, so the flavors can become more intense. The fat, if you're making ice cream and it's a creme anglaise base, your fat from your cream or milk and your yolks is going to firm up in the refrigerator. So you're going to end up with ultimately a better textured frozen product if you let it mature. M-A-T-U-R-E, mature, get old in the fridge. Okay, this is going to get a little bit loud, so I'm just going to pour this in and go from the end. Turn off the video so that you don't have to listen to it churning for about 20 minutes. I always want to make sure that it's properly put together. So the blade goes on the bottom, and the way this one works is that the bowl spins and the blade stays still. So the bowl is going to spin, it's on a little motor, and the blade is going to stay still and keep it from freezing to the wall so much. So it's going to churn it. It's going to be mixing it while it's churning. When I put my mix in, I always put my machine on first. If I were to put my mix in and then put my machine together, my paddle in there and everything, it's possible that what's on the side and the inside will freeze and then this will just stop. So I always turn on my machine first and then pour my mix in, and then I wait for 20 minutes until I'm ready to take it out. So until then, here we go. Put this in here. Give it a little stir first. I want to fill my machine about 2/3 full because if I go any bigger than that, it could overflow. I'm going to get something called overrun. Turn this off for a second. Overrun, O-V-E-R-R-U-N, and that is the amount that the base increases just because of the churning, because of air being put in there. So if I put in about 3 cups of puree, I might end up with maybe a 50% overrun, so that'll give me about 4.5 cups of finished product. Same weight, different volume. All right, here we go. Oh, it took it all, look at that. So I ended up with about 1 quart of base, and it all fit into my machine. I'm going to leave this for about 20 minutes, and I'll see you on the flip side.